All right, today I just want to talk a little bit about what I do to overcome stage fright. Whether it's singing in front of people, playing guitar, or both. And this came about from a comment or a question that I had in the comments. Hey Tim, where he was just asking like how can he get over stage fright? Like, because he wants to play a couple shows, he wants to get out there and play around in a campfire, whatever. He just wants to get out and play some more. So I figured, you know what? I'm just going to kind of tell you what I do. May not be everything. There's probably, 50,000 other videos out there that have more information on this, but I'm just going to kind of tell you the way I think about it. And then I think that could probably help. So the first thing I like to, that I like to do to minimize stage fright is I practice my ass off. And what I mean by that is I just continually play the songs, or if I have, 4 hours worth of music or 2 hours worth of music, or maybe it's just 3 songs, I will just practice those until I can't stand them anymore. Because basically what happens is it just starts to lock it into your brain and almost, puts it into your muscle memory. So it just becomes one of those things where it's just nothing to worry about anymore at some point, because you've practiced it so many times, it becomes second nature. And to me, that's the biggest thing. And to go along with that, the best way to kind of minimize stage fright is just to play more shows. Put yourself in those positions where you have to deal with it, because the more you deal with it, the easier it's going to get. And don't get me wrong, I still get a little freaked out before shows in a lot of different situations, because everyone's a little bit different. And, no matter how practiced you are, there's always going to be some element of nervousness before you play. But just practicing is going to go a long way towards kind of wiping some of that stuff out. Because, I still get nervous to this day. I just played on somebody's patio like a month and a half ago, and I was pacing, like crazy before I even started. And it was all my friends, like people that I know that I see all the time. So trust me, it's going to happen. But yeah, we just got to figure out ways to kind of trick ourselves into dealing with it. So the next thing I'm going to mention is I always try to be in the moment and not rely on outcomes, right? Like if you start thinking in outcomes, it makes it worse, right? It's because you're sitting there and you're thinking like, oh my God, what if it goes wrong? No, don't think about what ifs. Try not to worry about what people are thinking, what they're going to say. Are they going to think I suck or whatever? Don't worry about outcomes. You can't control that. But what you can control is, how you go into the performance. And what you can control is strumming the guitar, singing the song, and just focusing on what's in front of you, kind of try to be present. And I know, again, it's easier said than done, because, when you start playing, things can happen, but you just want to get yourself into that mindset. And the third thing is, and this kind of comes with the practice part and playing in front of more people, is I actually started to kind of psych myself up in a good way and use that anxiety, and I would channel it into my performance, because I always knew that like all I needed to do was get that first song or hit that first chord. Because once it started, oops, I know, geez, use my hands way too much. But once I started, it just got easier from there, and I kind of settled into the performance. And again, I was just immersed in the performance, and I wasn't thinking about all this other stuff, right? Again, easier said than done, but that's what starts to happen after you play quite a bit. So that's another thing. Just kind of try to use it. And I know there's a lot of people in sports. If you've played sports at all before, you kind of understand the same thing too. You're always a little nervous before the game, but maybe there's some things that you can kind of do to put yourself in the mindset before you play, because like once you start playing, it's game on, right? Like you're just running. And the same thing applies, or at least I've kind of brought that from my experience playing sports over the years, and I've kind of brought that to my performances too. I just know, just get in the mindset. Once I start playing, everything should disappear and we should just be playing a show, right? So That's another thing. Um, Another tip that I've found useful over the years, and this goes back to when I first started playing like open jams, is I always started with the easiest song that I could play. Um, so for me, I would always do Horse with No Name. It's only like 2 chords, and I knew I could sing the hell out of it, right? So I'm like super confident in my voice, super confident in my playing because it's only 2 chords. It's pretty easy to play. So that's what I would do. I would just start with that because that went a long ways towards me kind of like, shaking shaking hands with the audience and just everybody kind of, or at least me getting more comfortable with playing. Cause I knew that under any circumstance, I could probably pull off Horse with No Name. So whatever song is, you probably have a song that, you could play backwards, forwards, upside down, and that you're super confident about. Start with that one. You don't always have to forever, but I think in the beginning it's super important. And yeah, and if you see me play, you're almost always going to see me start with that song because I still do it to this day. It's kind of like a safety blanket for me. The last thing I'll say, and this is a dangerous one, and I could get a lot of flack for this, but sometimes having a beer, maybe a shot or something to go on, like some kind of an alcohol ritual. I know some of you, I don't want to encourage this. And I know there's a lot of people that struggle with this stuff. So I don't want to like say this lightly, but sometimes in the past, back to my DJ days, and definitely in my early music days, just having a drink or something before I started the show would go a long way with kind of, lubricating, I don't know what you call it, my stage fright, it would just lubricate like my performance. And I don't know, that's probably a bad way to say it. So anyway, I hope those help. And one other thing I wanted to mention too is because a couple months ago, I went to a show and it was like Seether was playing, and I think you remember the band Seether, right? I don't have to go into all that, but if you don't, just look them up. But they've been around for a long time, and they've sold a lot of music. They've been around for a long time, and it was odd to me that the singer he was a singer and lead guitar player, and he was off to the side of the stage and he had no spotlight on him. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I was just like, when I got back home, and I heard actually one of my friends told me he saw him, I don't know how many years ago, but he saw him at Rockfest, and he said the same thing there too. The guy never talked to the audience. He just kind of stood there with his hair over his face and, no spotlight and all this stuff. And it turns out that he actually suffers from stage fright. And he's been around forever. He's got I think he's got platinum selling albums. They've had many albums. They're a big band, right? Seether. So it was just fascinating to me that like somebody that big was able to overcome, severe stage fright. And I did a little research on it when I got done with the show because that's how geeky I am about this stuff. I'm going to drop a link in the, below the video. You can go check it out. It kind of just talks about like how he's dealt with it and, how it's affected him and all that stuff. So trust me, you are definitely not alone. None of us are. Almost everybody has these types of issues, some more severe than others. But, when you hear about this guy, Shawn Morgan from a big band, that's been around for a long time, when he's having the same issues, maybe that can provide a little comfort for you too. Because if he's able to overcome this to, do everything that he's done in his career, then, I think it gives us all hope. So anyway, definitely rambled a little bit too much on this one, but I hope that helps. And thanks again for the question. Anybody else has any questions, definitely drop them below, and we'll see you in the next video. Talk to you later.